Welcome to our wonderful channel, Shaping African Conversations. I'm Lorna Irungu-Macharia. This is my first solo video, and in this video, I wanted to tell you more about me, so that as we engage over the next couple of weeks, months, years even, you get to know where I'm coming from. I joined the Gina Din Group a couple of months ago, and it's been such an amazing journey. And the question is, what do I have to do with Shaping African Conversations? So let me have a conversation with you about me. My background started in television and film, and it's so good to be kind of back to this space, but without a very fixed audience. So now it's a totally different space. I started off as a television presenter for one of the first private channels in Kenya Television Network, KTN. I went in on the request of a friend who was like, you should do this. And I said, I don't do television, I do theater. I love being on stage. And he was like, no, this is for you. And guess what? I failed. I went in for that test and they were like, nope, she is not television material. And he said, no, she is. And so that was my first step at getting a job. And what the lesson I learned there is, sometimes your passion or sometimes the things you're good at may not be seen by everyone, but it takes one person to believe in you for it to happen. That journey opened up an entire industry for me. I was studying communications at the time, and here I was, not just studying, but working in the same environment that I was studying about. And that was the other thing that kind of shaped my destiny and shaped my thinking around it, because it's one thing to be taking a class, it's another one to be in the environment where the lessons are supposed to be executed. And I was on board, learning the things, learning the nuances, learning the difference between practical and actually, theory. And I did spend 10 years in the television and radio space, because I did move on to do quite a bit of work in radio. And all of that for me was about a journey. It was always about learning. It was always about using my voice. It was always about sharing information, edutainment, as we liked to call it. My journey from television and radio quickly moved away, and I ended up being a producer and working on other kind of work, creating stories, generating content that was then being placed in front, hosting a show, hosting a game show. Some people who are in Kenya know that I hosted a great show, Almo Pick a Box, which was so much fun. Just interacting with everyday people, and there's nothing like live interactions with people and getting them on board to get you excited. And so I had this rare opportunity that very few people who end up working in the industry do, where you've worked in front of the scenes and you've worked behind the scenes. I then took a break from all of that and spent quite a bit of time managing an entertainment space. The Carnival restaurant had a great entertainment spot called Simba Saloon, and I was in charge of making that a fun, engaging space. But there was a thing there. It wasn't just about the space, but what could you do with it? From live performances to getting people to come in to do launches, to working with corporates. We engaged the public and we transformed the space into not just a fun spot, but a hosting space. And that meant dealing with a lot of people. Sometimes people look at me and say, how did you end up doing PR? How did you end up in this space that you are in now? And every little step along the way has been like a ladder. It is the crux of the job. So when I look at where I am now, who's the person who started in television, radio, and went into management of an entertainment sport, I realized that all those things were leading me to where I am today. In the process, I decided to follow the things I cared about. What did I, as Lorna, care about? Not the work, not what paid the bills. What did I care about? I've always been a strong believer and an advocate for women. I've always been a strong believer and an advocate for health, and that's drawn from my own personal health issues. I've actually had to undergo 3 kidney transplants in 20 years, and part of that was about learning how to survive. Part of it was about learning how to research, seek information, get the best possible medical care to be able to make the right choices for myself. Those are the things I cared about. And because of the things I cared about, I got invited into spaces I ordinarily do not think I would have been invited into if I hadn't been open about my commitments, my passions, and the things I cared about. In 2010, I was chosen to be an Archbishop Tutu Fellow, based partly on the work that I had done around creating awareness on violence against women and girls. That was what interested them in. in allowing me or in selecting me to be part of this fellowship. And what an experience. It opened up my mind to a whole new space, to what Africans like myself were doing. Being in a room filled with your peers, being part of an alumni network, where you learn a lot more from your peers and what they're doing and the different challenges they're facing in different countries, opened up Africa to me. This was 8 years ago. In that time, since I have taken part in global conferences, international ones, regional ones, and the conversation about Africa, what's exciting about it, is now starting to pick up momentum. I have a thing that I strongly believe in. As the narrative around Africa continues to grow, and as we keep saying Africa is rising, how is it rising? We're talking about infrastructure deals. We're talking about the opportunities that lie. We're talking about the hope. But what about Africans? How are individuals feeling? Are we really rising when we have a migrant crisis, when people are running away from this continent? Are we really rising when our unemployment is skyrocketing across the continent? Are we really rising when our population is 70% youth under 70 and they do not see or hear their voice in positions of leadership? So, are Africans rising? When I look at some of those questions and when I deal with clients, or even when we are just engaging on this issue, the thing that I have to remind myself is this. I was once the excitable 21-year-old in a television station trying to get a break. What does it feel like for a 21-year-old today? What are the opportunities they are seeking? What are the things that will make a difference for them? How do you capture that essence, that lesson, that memory, and bring it forth today to the issues we face as a country, as a region? What are we saying about Africa? How are we saying it? That's a difference. It's not just about what you say, but how are we saying it? What are the decision makers saying? Are they hearing? Are they listening? The youth, the continent, is in a very exciting space right now. And that narrative needs to be molded, needs to be packaged, needs to be shaped. Joining the Gina Din Group at this time, for me, is a culmination of places I have been to, decisions I have made, some deliberate, some accidental, life choices that have been thrown at me. All this is now coming together because for the first time in many years, I do not just consider myself a Kenyan. I consider myself an African. I consider myself a global citizen of African heritage. And I want my story to be the story that we tell about Africa. I want your story to be the one to tell about Africa. But more importantly, I want businesses, institutions, government to begin to understand that our story will be told by us. We are the ones who are going to shape it. I'm going to be telling you more about how the Gina Din Group is going to be going around doing this. But for now, I'm going to leave it just at that. And I want to leave you with one thing. If you had one story about Africa that you could tell, what would it be? Share it with me. For this and more videos, please don't forget to subscribe to Shaping African Conversations.